What happens when the thing that you have been hiding for decades becomes the very thing that sets you free? Today, I'm sitting down with Colleen Clifford, commercial fisherwoman, author, speaker who spent 36 years literally living at sea and a whole lot longer hiding a story that she was convinced made her unlovable. We talk about shame. We talk about binge drinking and about losing her husband to alcohol related suicide. And the moment she finally decided to tell her truth out loud. This one goes deep and it goes there fast. So stay with us. My friend, not broken, disconnected. That's what I keep coming back to because most of us are walking through life thinking that we need to fix ourselves, do more, be better, when really we've just gotten disconnected from who we are. Welcome to Mindset Medicine. I am Dr. Tanya Berfield, speaker, mindset strategist, and someone who believes that real change happens when we bring together science, soul, somatics, and a dash of hippie woo. This podcast is all about coming back to yourself, about learning how to know yourself, trust yourself, align your life, and lead with confidence, integrity, and real power. Some weeks, it's just you and me, diving into mindset shifts, nervous system work, and the patterns that keep us stuck in overthinking, overfunctioning, and burnout. Other weeks, I'm sitting down with people who are doing something just a little bit better than we are, whether that is leadership, parenting, money, health, or just how they're showing up in their lives. Not because they have it all figured out, but because they have found something that works, and we get to learn from that. So if you have been feeling overwhelmed, stuck, or like you are doing everything right, but something still feels off, my friend, you are in the right place. Cheers. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I have a fun guest with me today. So this is Colleen Clifford. She is a fisherwoman, an author, and a speaker. And I'm just going to say an overall like cool cat and probably a badass from what I'm picking up. So I'm really excited to have this conversation. I think that it's different. What you do is a little bit different than what some of the other women that we have talked about. So I think this will just be a really interesting conversation. So hi, Colleen. How are you?
Hi, I'm great. Thank you for having me. Super
Oh, you
excited.
are so welcome. Thank you for coming. So why don't you just tell us, what is your story? What do you got going on?
Well, you mentioned I'm a commercial fisherwoman, and that's been my story for 36 years. Not only just my job, but I've actually lived at sea, probably 25 of those, on a boat, on a ship, floating around the ocean near Russia, Japan, Alaska. It was a great job for me to escape.
Mm,
And I found that in as a young 19-year-old uh, binge drinker, and I had a shameful situation happen that caused so much. Well, the situation happened, which caused the shame, which amped up my drinking, which helped me drop out of college. I found a job fishing, and I took off. Nobody back in the 80s knew what Alaska commercial fishing was. I didn't even, and just found that that was a great safe space for me to hide for
hmm.
years. Hmm.
I like, some of the work that I do has to do with like harassment, discrimination, and sexual misconduct. And so when I hear that you are a commercial fisherwoman on a boat and that is a safe space, that almost feels like an oxymoron to me. Like I have to believe you're probably on a boat with a lot of men, and that would, for a lot of people, that would not feel like a safe space. So talk about what that experience was like.
Yeah, well, in my 20s, a lot of the captains were young at that time, the engineers. I mean, it was an industry that was new, and these investors bought boats and they put on people that, said, "Oh yeah, I can fish." And we learned through the experience. And so it was actually kind of like a fun time on the boat as a single woman, if you can imagine, little promiscuity going on. I see it now with the the young girls. I'm the old hen on the boat now, and it's kind of funny the drama that happens. And they come in and I don't know what's happening. I'm just laughing, but so things don't change. But it's all good and well if that's if it's welcomed, right?
Mhm,
Definitely, there was some harassment issues, not for me personally, but
mhm,
harassment issues did come up, and it started, with lawsuits. That's when things change, really, when
mhm.
someone goes
Yep.
home and they sue the company. And then the company puts in place procedures. They actually get a HR department, and they start creating rules that we have to follow, and we sign, contracts. We sign the
Mhm.
paper. I will not harass any women, and then also teaching what harassment is. We have a lot of
Yes.
people from different
Mhm.
countries, and so, you
Oh, I
know,
didn't think about the cultural
yeah,
differences,
there's
right.
a lot of cultural differences, and so it's been a learning curve for a lot of people, but they've gotten
Yeah,
there, and it's not
yeah.
tolerated at all.
And also, I think that's probably, like, generational too, right? Like, there was a time that was acceptable in any workforce, and that has changed and not nearly as acceptable, and I think younger women are pretty comfortable speaking up compared to what we had probably been through before just based on the, like, culture and what was accepted and all of that. That makes sense. I also because this just whole idea of this is fascinating to me. The concept of living on a boat, I'm not so sure about that.
Mhm.
What is I mean, how like, what were the periods of time that you would be out on boat?
Well, in my early years, I we used to work 2 months on, 2 months off, or 3 months on,
Mhm,
2 months off, and so
mhm,
I figure at least I was working at least 8 months on the boat a year, sometimes 9 when I was young, and then so I tried to figure out how many months I've been on a boat. It's a lot of years, and now I'm phasing out of my career. I've got like 3 more years, and and then I'll
Okay,
retire from the commercial fishing industry. So I'm only working about 4 or 5 months right now. Yeah, 4 to 5.
okay.
So that's
I mean,
yeah.
that sounds lovely, that part of it.
It 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 is until
Yeah.
you have to go. I'm leaving Friday, and I'm already like, oh, I have to leave.
Oh,
Oh.
no. And I have to imagine, like, it's gotta be tight quarters, it's gotta be everybody in everybody's business, so, there are gonna be personalities that you love and personalities that you don't, and so I can imagine that being together with people for that amount of time is great and wonderful and not all wrapped up into one.
Absolutely. Fortunately, I share a room with one person, and we're opposite shifts, so
Mm,
we're not in the
mm,
room at the same time. It's a
yep,
very comfortable room, and I just go straight from my room down to the galley. I'm in charge of the food and cooking and
okay.
catering, and we have our galley team, which when we hire, we make sure we're all going to get along because we're in the
Mhm,
same workspace for 12 hours a day. So
yep,
that's key. I mean, it doesn't even matter really if they know how to cook. It's because we can teach
yeah,
that. It's like, are you a drama
fit,
person? Or,
yep.
yeah, exactly.
Fit. That's one of my, like, leadership and team dynamics
Mhm.
are some of my favorite things to deal with, and I that's one of the things I excel at is building a really good team. I really like doing that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crucial for
Yeah.
happiness.
Mhm. For sure.
It's good.
So what led
Yeah.
you down this path of, like, author, speaker? What's going on with that? What are you doing there?
Yeah. So, life is weird how it just kind of throws you in a direction. And
Mhm.
so at one point I was married, probably in my late 40s. I kind of lost track. But after a few years of marriage, my husband passed from alcohol related suicide.
Mm. Okay, I'm sorry about
Yeah.
that.
Thank you. And so that was 2011.
Mhm.
And through, that's 14 years ago. So I can't talk about it. I processed a lot of it, although sometimes emotions linger for a long time, and they
Mhm.
surprise me when they surface. But throughout my healing and my journey of grief, I went through different stages, which is normal. I was very angry at him in the beginning, and then I worked through other stages, and then I fell into a depression, my own,
Mhm.
which I'd never experienced before. And once I experienced that and came out on the other side, I gained so much compassion of what depression must have felt like for him because he chose death over feeling his depression. And
Mm-hmm.
also the alcohol helped tip him
Sure.
over the edge. And
Sure.
so I honestly like to believe he didn't know what he was doing. He was so drunk at the time that he died. Um, and so within my journey of healing, I decided to turn hit, and I, hope he's okay with this. I talk to him a lot in my, in my life and in my
Mm-hmm.
head, and I just say, hey, I'm turning your tragedy into some hope for us, for me, for you. I mean, this death has to have some sort of meaning. I'm making a meaning about it. I don't want it to
Mm-hmm.
just, you know, and if we can help someone through the message, through the story, then great. And so I kind of found that through writing on Substack. I like to write. I've always liked to write,
Mm-hmm.
and I always wanted to write a book. And so it kind of I was working with a guy who's really renowned on Substack, and he had me, you know, hone in on the biggest pain point in my life and write from there because that's what draws out your authentic voice of like
Mm-hmm.
angst, and people want to read that
Sure.
stuff. It's really you
Yep.
can get really
Yep.
vulnerable. And it's his suicide, and so and how I it affected me, and so before I knew it, it became a book, and then it's like, okay, I need to speak about this. I found funny enough, on the boat before, there were so many hours where I wasn't talking because I'm in the space by myself cooking. Before
Mm-hmm.
I'm on the ship I'm on now that has a whole galley crew, but I often worked by myself, not talking to anyone for 12 hours a day, hardly, except hi, 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 hi. And I found that I really like to talk on podcasts, and I can't shut up, It's like,
I love that.
yeah. So
But it
I
almost
found
was
my voice.
yeah, it almost was probably like an avoidance though, right? If you're just shut off and not having to deal with it, you're busy, so you're not having to face it, but you're quiet, so you're not having to address it. I almost feel like there would be some level of avoidance associated with that.
Probably, yes.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah. So, how long were you
yeah.
married to your husband?
We were only married about 2 close to 3 years when he died.
Hmm.
We had been together for 6,
Hmm.
and it was a point we were having some, relationship issues, so we were going to marriage counseling,
Hmm.
and I was on the boat, and he stopped the counseling, but I continued with our therapist on the boat. She was cool with me calling her and having just a phone conversation every week or 2. And so I asked her, I decided I wanted a divorce. And it's something we'd been talking about before I went fishing. So it wasn't like I
Hmm.
threw a bombshell on him. And so that morning, I'd been talking to my counselor, like, is it cowardly to ask over, the phone that I want a divorce? And she said, if you're ready, you don't have to be face to face. It's okay. So I said, well, I'm ready. So that morning I asked for divorce, and that evening he was dead.
Mm. Oh
Yeah. So that
boy.
added a layer of, but,
Sure.
you know, but thank God I had her with me to call, and she helped
Hmm.
me put it on a shelf, as she termed it, which was perfect for me because I was out fishing by Russia and it took me a week to get off the boat.
Hmm.
So I had to just compartmentalize the trauma. And even though I was still feeling it, but I just had to get physically home without being a complete wreck.
Hmm.
And I knew intellectually that it wasn't my fault. Like it's even the fact that he died by his own hand indicated his state of mind, which wasn't
Hmm.
healthy. But still, you know,
Hmm. Oh, that's
rationally and
yeah. It
emotionally,
could have been an
it took
accident
a
and it was
while to
still it would
process.
have yeah, it could have been an accident and it would have been horrible, but then to have the circumstances be what they are means that you probably have some guilt and lots of feelings
Hmm.
that come around that are not going to be easy to navigate. Mm.
Hmm.
How and you said, but how long ago was that?
14 years.
Okay. How do you feel like you've
Yeah.
come through most of it?
I do. I do.
Mhm.
Although sometimes it's really fascinating. I spoke at a grief retreat a month ago or so, and spoke the story to the attendees,
Mhm.
and we did some breath work. One of the gals that spoke, that was her modality of breath work,
Mhm.
and I love doing breath work. And
Mhm.
so, I never know what's going to come up, and I just had this incredible release of
Oh,
crying.
nice.
It
Yep.
was just amazing. Yeah. So
Mhm.
it's crazy how long, emotions stay stored in us if we don't
Mhm.
let them out.
Yeah. I love that you just said that they stay stored in us, like, that, the book, The Body Keeps the Score is it is not a joke. It is everything that happens to us, around us, for us, those are all things that we hold somehow in our body, and sometimes we have to hold on to them for a while, and then when we're ready, we can figure out how to let go of them. I, earlier in the month when we're listening to this podcast earlier in the month during my solo episode, I was talking about a client that I work with, and she is dealing with like what I'm calling a label. So there's a label that was given to her, and so she's struggling with like just accepting that there's a vulnerability that comes around that. And she just said to me earlier today, she's going to work on some of her own energy work this weekend, and she said, I just feel like I need to cry. And I'm like, we cry when we need to cry, right? Like, if there's no shame in that, and you can feel it building up sometimes. And so, if that's what it takes, and we talked about like what is the way that we sort of process through this. And for her, I feel like there's a real luxurious like ritual that needs to be had. And so, whether that's a matcha or a cacao and some journaling and a candle and a fluffy blanket, whatever that is, I feel like for her in this very moment, what she needs is like luxury release. And so we just spent some time talking about that. And but she's got a plan. She knows when she's ready for it, because we, just like you were saying, like, I have to hold this together for this week while I'm trying to get to the location that will allow me to now navigate this next thing. And so sometimes that's what we have to do, is we have to, especially as women, we have these boxes that we have to check before we can do the thing for ourselves that allows us to sort of release that emotion, to release the memories, to release the grief, whatever it is that's coming up for us. So I imagine that was pretty
Hmm.
intense for you.
It was, and it's been a process. Fortunately, I've already incorporated my own wellness in my life. So I'm very willing to spend money on me to do these things.
Mhm.
I figured out in my 30s, I'm like, oh my gosh, why did I wait so long to get massages, to do
Yes.
Reiki? It's just like we're
Yep.
worth it, right? We just
Mhm.
really so.
Yeah, I agree. A monthly massage is something that I started doing for myself a year or 2 ago, maybe, and I absolutely love it. And I went to meet with a new woman a couple of weeks ago. We're just talking about collaborating on a couple of things, and I went into her space, and she was like, "Oh, forgive me, I'm a mess. I just came out of a 4-hour massage." And I was like, "You did what? A 4-hour massage? I'm not sure I could sit
I
on the
would love
table
that.
for that long, but that sounds glorious."
It does. 2 is not long enough for me. I'm just like, "Oh, it's done
Exactly.
already?
Oh,
Oh my
shoot.
gosh." Mhm.
Yeah, 4 hours. So you talked about, overcoming, like, so you talked about binge drinking. Let's go back to that for a little bit. So
Mm.
in your early years, you had a good time. You found some boundaries maybe. So what was that like? Just tell me about that chapter of your life. What was that like?
Well, looking back while writing my book, I discovered, I just knew from the get-go I was a binge drinker. That was my style. Like,
Mhm.
my
Same.
first instance drinking was, yeah. So, and I didn't drink
Mhm.
every day, so
Yep.
I didn't call
Yep.
myself a alcoholic, because I didn't,
Mhm.
so definitely a binge drinker. And in the 80s, early 80s, everyone was a binge drinker.
Mhm.
Really, I mean, you hang out with your friends and everyone's drinking, and the beer bongs,
Yep.
all
Yep.
that stuff. It was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. And so, So that also helped my problem because I was normal because other people I hung out with were doing it. So it wasn't
Mhm.
anything abnormal. Almost encouraged to drink. If you weren't drinking, you almost stood out as the
Mhm.
abnormal person.
Yep.
Um, but for me, I dropped out of college because I couldn't. I'm not a type A personality, and just getting hungover trying to do my homework didn't work. So I dropped
Mhm.
out. But I also had incidents happen, my experience where I contracted. So I was a late bloomer sexually and a good Catholic girl. And about 19, I was like, what the heck is this sex thing? All my friends, I'm like the last one to have sex, right?
Mhm.
So probably my second incident of being drunk and having sex unprotected, like I didn't know. I was so naive. I don't want to say stupid, but naive because I never
Mhm.
had the conversation with
It's
my
fair.
mom
Yeah.
or, yeah.
Mhm.
And I didn't even know there were STDs you could get. And
Oh my
bang,
goodness.
I get
Yeah.
one. Yeah, and I was so naive that I was training for a triathlon and I was biking like a lot. And I thought my
Mhm.
irritation in my vaginal area was from biking. So
Sure.
imagine
Also
I
fair, right?
finally go to the doctor. I don't really Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't really have any money, so I'm waiting, going, "Oh, it's gonna get better, it's gonna get better." Finally, I'm like, "Okay, I'm going to the doctor." I go to a doctor, I see a male doctor, and he, like, is reactive, like,
Mm.
horrified, disgusted, says, "This is the worst case I've ever seen in my life,"
Oh
and he
no.
hands me a piece of paper. Yeah, he hands me a piece of paper. This is what I remember, how I remember it.
Mhm.
He hands me a piece of paper, scribbled, "Here's a 1-800 number to call and they'll answer your questions." And he left. And I was like, whoa, what just happened? I'm crying. I
Mhm.
feel disgusted, ashamed, like dirty. And I'm like, what is this? Well, this is before Google. I couldn't Google it. I didn't know
Sure.
what it
Yeah.
was. I didn't go to the library. So, and I wasn't going to talk about it with anyone because I
Mhm.
obviously, it's disgusting from look at how the doctor reacted to me. And I took the paper, I walked out of the office, crumpled it, and tossed it in the garbage. And I
Oh
created
no.
a story. This is the huge part about
Yep.
the work that, our reframing. At that moment, I created this story that I was unlovable. It was a death
Mm.
sentence. Nobody would ever marry me. I'll never
Mhm.
have children. All these things in one moment.
Mhm.
Um, Never have children, and I'll never talk about this to anyone.
Mm.
And it's like I had this thing, I locked that in my heart, in my brain, and I proceeded to live life like very reckless.
Mhm.
And it's almost, Tanya, I almost at times forgot I even had it. I
Oh.
was so in denial about it.
I was just gonna say you had your denial crown on.
Oh,
Yeah.
totally. And so I drank myself. Fell off a balcony. I mean, it's amazing I'm not
Mhm.
dead. I should be dead. There's about a number of times that I did some things where I should be dead and I'm not. But yet I never still equated my binge drinking because I didn't care.
Mhm.
I think I subconsciously wanted to die because
Mhm.
I wasn't lovable. I would never get
Yeah.
married.
You didn't know how to
Yeah. So
navigate this.
it was pretty, see, it's a part of my story that is key.
Mhm.
Some people might say, why talk about this? And in writing my book, it's like I wrote everything about except that, right? I tiptoed around it. And I'm like, you know what? This is the meat of the whole thing. Like,
Mhm.
this is my shame story. And if I
Right.
leave it out, I'm not even telling the truth. I'm not
Yep.
being real.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
it's
Where's your
been very
authenticity?
hard. Yeah,
I
because I
can't
didn't talk about it for
imagine.
years.
Yeah. And I imagine because that was, that was several years ago. And so I think that acceptance has changed, but that doesn't change the internal belief system that it's wrong or bad or shameful or, something that you should be hiding. And so what I guess writing the book and recognizing that if you're going to be authentic and you're really going to live in your own integrity, you have to be able to talk about this. But
Hmm.
what gave you the courage to be able to do that?
Stupidity, no.
We're crazy.
Seriously, I'm like, who talks about this stuff, right? Especially it's like people just go, oh, and
Yep.
that's the thing. It's just like that ooh reaction. But fortunately people don't do that. Not
Mhm.
as, maybe in their head, but on their face they're not. But it's only been recently that I've talked about it. Like I was on a podcast with a guy a couple months ago. The first time I ever verbally said it really, and it was on a podcast, which I wasn't able to upload. I didn't share it with my socials because I wasn't ready for it to be
Mhm.
heard.
Mhm.
Even though his listeners might hear it, but not on
Sure.
my platform, right? With my
Yep.
followers.
Yep.
But he kind of pulled it out of me because he said I was tiptoeing around my 19-year-old experience, and he's like, "Well, what happened? Were you raped?" And no, and I said, "Okay, fine," because I was having a great
Mhm.
conversation with him. That's kind of like we are,
Mhm.
And at the
Yep.
beginning, it was like, "Okay, fine. I'm just going to tell you because you kind of forget this is being recorded and it's going to go out to the universe."
Crap.
You're having a great conversation, like, you feel like it's so intimate, and you're like, "Okay,
Yep.
I'm just gonna
Yep.
tell you. So, I have herpes." And he said, "Come again?" Like, and I said, "Okay, great. This is not flying the way I was hoping." And he said, "Wow, that was like a
Yeah.
death sentence." And he's the first one that labeled it as
Yeah.
a guy,
It felt
because
that
I'm
way.
like, "You're
Yeah.
absolutely right. It was my
Mhm.
death sentence." And that's what that
Yeah.
chapter in my book, I call it my death sentence. Thank you very much.
Uh, yeah.
Yeah,
And it
'cause
changed everything for you, right? Like that you went
oh
from
yeah.
being like positive, I'm assuming. I mean, especially if you're training for a triathlon, you're in physical good shape, you're working towards goals, you're looking at things from a very positive lens, and then suddenly you've got these words, this label that's thrown at you that does not feel good at all.
Yeah, Tanya, and I didn't,
Mhm.
so I was in this great relationship and I didn't want to tell the guy who was
Oh.
he was a professional soccer player. I used to play soccer and I adored this man. And then I had an outbreak and we had already been active and I hadn't told him from the get-go. And I was like, oh, I can't retrace, how am I going to get out of this? So I broke up with him. And that's what I would do because,
Mhm.
you can tell I could tell when the outbreaks were gonna happen. It's kinda like when you had your period. I don't get my period
Mhm.
anymore, but you kinda know when it's
Mhm.
coming, like, you're like,
Yep.
"Oh, I feel
Yep.
bloated,"
You
and
have the
so
feeling.
then,
Yep. Yep.
yeah, so then you just stay away until you're sure. Um, so I would pick partners who weren't necessarily my ideal partners and just get myself in situations that would just kind of
Mhm.
snowball my lack of self-esteem and my
Mhm.
almost like I was saying I was unlovable and I'm going to prove it. Like
Yeah.
I'm going to
Yeah,
make these
because
choices that's going to
yeah.
reinforce my belief.
Yeah, it makes good sense because you know it's a temporary situation, and so it's gotta be easy enough for you to walk away from, but you want companionship in the meantime, and you want somebody to spend time with in the meantime, and so, yeah, that makes perfect sense to me. Ugh.
Yeah, I know, right?
So yeah, right. So what would then changed? Why did you like, what came to the point of, like, not wanting to binge drink anymore and wanting to change into, like, a more sort of positive mindset in that trajectory?
Well, the first crack in my armor was my sister noticed that I didn't want children, and so she made that observation and asked me what happened because I'm very good with
Mhm.
her kids. I used to take them all the time, and even though I drank, I could be responsible when I wanted needed to, and I could
Mhm.
be irresponsible when I chose to. So it was just like
Mhm.
whatever I felt like.
Yeah.
Uh, so um, she's the one that drug it out of me the first time, and I was able to start talking about it in private, not on podcast, but go to therapy and start working on my belief about being unlovable and changing that uh, belief, which took a lot of years, quite honestly. The drinking. as far as quitting, I stayed stuck in the denial of being a binge drinker because I like to call it the 95-5 factor. It's just something I came up with because I was looking at my pattern and I was like, how could I stay stuck? And the only way I look at it is that most of the time I could drink normally, and I didn't always binge drink. And when I did binge drink, it wasn't always horrible. I'd always have a hangover the next day, but I'd be, oh, okay, just slow down.
Mhm.
Everyone was kind of drinking too much that night, so it's okay. All these excuses. Until you binge drink at a party and you do something like you trip over a rock and you crack your tooth, or you do something like get in a car and drive home. And that's what I did.
Mhm.
And you know, people are still dying. I think it's one person every 42 minutes in the United States from drunk driving.
Mhm.
So it's still happening. And I was so ashamed the next day because I thought I was okay. People have asked me, how could you get in the car? Like with everything we know, there's Ubers and blah, blah, blah. I said, I'm not
Right.
the generation of Ubers. I know there's no excuse, but
Mhm.
um, so I just woke up the next day and said, this has to change. And the only way this will change is if I stop drinking. That's my only guarantee I won't do this again.
Mhm.
And that was 5 years ago.
Wow, I was thinking I was expecting to hear it was a bigger number. Yeah, 5
No.
years. Huh. Good for
No,
you.
because as I've gotten older, thank you, thank you. As I've gotten older,
Uh-huh.
our friends don't really drink, so I don't drink that much.
Mhm.
And I thought I was clear, like, oh, I got this. I can drink like everybody
Mhm.
else. And then I go to my best friend's party on Sunday and the Moscow Mules come out and all of a sudden it's from 6 to midnight and I'm like, oh shoot, I have to get home. I told my partner I'd be home. And everyone's saying, just stay, just stay. And I'm like, no, 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 I have to get home. And halfway through the drive, I'm just seeing a double line. And I just said,
Mhm.
please, God, get me home. And I swear to God, I'll never do this again. And so that's
Yep.
kind of what threw me for a loop,
Yeah.
like slap,
Yeah.
slap, you think you're never
It
going to do something stupid again? Here you go.
So I also am thankful that the moment that scared you, almost like scared you sober, was not traumatic and like, a horrible trajectory, like, because that could have been something very ugly, right? And often for people, that's exactly what it takes to get past this thing this pattern they're stuck in. So I am really thankful that
Absolutely.
you were at least had enough clarity to be scared straight, so to speak.
Yeah, I'm so grateful. I woke up I didn't even get a ticket or DUI
Mhm.
or a night in jail.
Mhm.
I got off so lucky. If that
Yep.
didn't scare me, and I love that, scare me straight, I would still be drinking.
Mhm.
And I realize how lucky I am. And I always try to apologize to anyone listening who's been affected by a drunk driver. It was the worst moment of my life, really, to make that decision. And
Mhm.
I'm doing my penance for that.
Right.
And I'm an advocate now for drinking and driving, and I'd love to work with MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Drivers,
Mhm.
you know, and I'd love to
Mhm.
go to schools and talk about this because
Mhm.
it's still happening.
Yeah. I think it's a great conversation to take into colleges and high schools because it's not the moment of like we were talking about, like you had tragic, I couldn't say the word tragic. It wasn't a tragic moment that you're now sorry for. It was just you recognized the error of what could have happened. And so
Mhm.
now how do we just do better? I think that's a
Mhm.
fantastic story. And then there's lots behind it too, right? There's a lot that led into this that I think is also just really good information. And I shared with you before before we started recording, that that's exactly what we're seeing on college campuses right now, or at least this year, is I'm saying teen, it's traditional college age pregnancy on top of alcohol use in a way that we haven't seen it for a couple of years. And I'm curious to see how the next couple of years go, but I don't know if it'll run the same course or if it will be different. Um, but I'm not thinking it's going to change for the next at least 2 or 3 or 4 years because I think they're just not they're not figuring out where are the boundaries and what are their limits and how to do this in a responsible way until they're away from home. And so they're coming in and just doing this in a way that's not super successful for them.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And how do you get the message so they'll hear it without the consequences of getting the
Yes.
message from the damage, right?
Exactly. Exactly. That's
Yeah.
a hard thing to understand and to it's a hard thing to teach, it's a hard thing to learn. You have to really be open to that. And I didn't think about this. I'm about to share something that who knew I was going to say this. I never thought about it. I have some really strong feelings about drinking and driving, and I also have always been a binge drinker. Alcoholism runs in my family. Most often, the alcoholics in my family are consistent drinkers. They can't go a day without drinking until they
Mhm.
move past that phase of their life. For me, it was never that. It was never about the need to have alcohol. It was once I had one, I have a hard time stopping and I can't control that. And so then I just go too far too fast every single time. It's a thing I do. My husband and I both, he has a similar issue. And if we stopped drinking completely for a while, several years. And when people would give us like, well, because that's, the group that we hung out with would be hanging out and having a beer or doing a little of this. And they would like try to like, why are you not drinking? And I would just say we got too good at it. Like that we were too skilled and we needed to step back for a
I
little
love that
while.
answer.
We were just too good. And so we did. We stepped back and we've stepped back in a little bit and it's more responsible than we had been. I call it a tipple now and then. Um, but I didn't realize until you were talking about your story that my feelings about drinking and driving probably are twofold. One, it has to do with the family history, but also when I was 16 years old and a new driver, we had skipped school and we had been drinking and I drove and I was very close to being in an accident and someone else grabbed the wheel and pulled us out of hitting another car and that scared the bejesus out of me. And I think that is probably the thing that made me not ever want to do that again.
Wow.
Yeah, how about that? Isn't it funny how things
Very
come up when
lucky.
you're
Yeah.
like, I hadn't thought about it. And you're right. I knew in the moment that I was so, so lucky because number one, people could have been hurt. And number two, the ramifications of me at 16 having done that would have lasted for a very long time. And my
Hmm.
family would not have received that very well. I'm sorry, mom, if you're listening. I never told you that story. But
Yeah.
I think that it's really important to learn those lessons and take them because we're all going to learn our lessons. Bad things are going to happen. You're going to do dumb things.
Hmm.
My boys, I text them on a regular basis. Don't be dumb. Like that's I don't say be good. I say don't be dumb. As I raise boys, and that's what they do.
Yeah.
And so I think we have to we have to learn. And we have to be
Yeah.
okay with learning those lessons and not waiting for the tragic thing to happen. I think that's such a good thing and
Exactly.
like a good point of your story. Whew.
Oh,
I
thanks.
didn't know
I
we were
those
going
are
there.
some good points. I know. Never know where it's gonna go. But yeah, yeah. So
Mhm.
anyway,
Yeah, so tell us
yeah.
about your book. What is that about? And it's coming out soon, right?
Yeah, it'll be actually today we finished editing it, so that's
Mm,
exciting. It'll be out July 28th.
nice.
And thank you. And it's a part memoir, part self-reflective for the reader. I have some stories, fishing stories in there. I have some other stories of near-death
Mm,
drinking
mhm,
experiences and lessons to learn. And I'm always asking the question to the reader, how's it going for you? Like it's not preachy. It's not like everyone needs to quit
mhm,
drinking. I'm just, always asking, how's it working for you today?
mhm,
And if it's not, then here's some things you might want to think about. And at the end of the day, I also talk about suicide and mental health. So I have a trigger warning at the beginning. I talk a lot about my experience with my late husband dying by suicide and the alcohol in that. And
mhm.
so I try to make it short. I don't want anyone to get bored. Uh, tried to say what I needed to say and get her done.
I love that. I
Or so I
love
could
that.
pick it up and go, oh, good. A lot of people don't have great attention spans anymore. So
That is
I
so
just,
true. Yep. So, so true. So
so
we definitely hit on some things with you that were deep and personal. Do you want to work through a little reflection?
sure, I'd love to. Your magic.
Scary stuff. I'm gonna move my thing. All right. Is there anything in particular that you want to work on, or we just want to do a little release around something like generic or general? It's totally up to you.
Yeah, generic or general. I'm feeling pretty good
Good. Okay.
emotionally.
So I have one tarot deck. I'm going to hold it up so you can see it. This is very quickly becoming one of my favorite decks. The meaning
Oh,
and
cool.
the messages are, oof, they're good. And then this one has been, let's see if I can get it without the light. It's called the Angelic Lightwork deck.
Oh,
Longtime favorite
I like
oracle
that.
deck. So
Oh,
is that
cool.
is that the one you want to go with? You choose
Yes, please.
this one.
Yeah, the
Okay.
angelic.
The,
Let's talk to
the Angelic. Okay.
the angels.
Talk to the angels.
Very.
Is there a question that we want to ask? Is there anything in particular that we want to focus on?
Uh, well, I've been praying lately that my Bali retreat will fill up.
Oh,
I've
I
been
wanted to
asking.
talk
I,
about that.
I've been asking my mom. In fact, I feed the homeless with my dad on Sunday now because my mom passed
Oh,
away last year. I know, so
hmm
sad. But they have a little prayer box, and I said, "Is it okay if I write a prayer?" And they said, "Yeah." And I wrote my wish, and then I said, "Oh yes, and of course keep the unhoused safe." That's why I was there.
hmm
So it's not all about
hmm
me, but
Yeah. So
but I
maybe
can
we're looking
ask,
for
right?
maybe a little something from your mom that can maybe help with this Bali retreat.
That would be great. Or
I'm
just
still
how she's
shuffling
doing.
how she's doing, what she needs for you to know.
Okay,
You are
I
not
love
going
that.
to believe this card. So we have been talking about vulnerability, right? Hold on, I was trying to
I
pull
love
my
to
book
talk
out at the
about
same time.
vulnerability.
Yeah. And so this card that I pulled for you is protection for the vulnerable heart.
Oh, that's
Protection
beautiful.
for the vulnerable heart. I that like I, I've got things to
You're gonna
say,
make
but
me cry.
I want I know. Tell me how that lands for you. What does that mean for you? Sorry, I do this to
That's
people a
really
lot.
beautiful. No, it's okay.
Yeah.
I'm okay with crying. I've cried a lot
Mhm.
in my life.
Mhm. Yep.
Um, it's it's very comforting.
Mhm.
It makes me feel like my mom has a blanket around me.
Mm. Yeah. I
Yeah.
definitely can see that. And we talked about like we asked the question about what does your mom have to say, and that's what she's saying is that she is protecting you. I think there's something to be said too because the theme of this month, and we talked about this before we started recording, is for me is vulnerability, which I choose because that's what seems to be coming around me on a very regular basis. Um, and I asked you if I could, I'm going to pull this up into the recording so that I can make sure that this recording hits within that theme. We talked about it today. We talked about how hard that was for you to have that conversation and to be open and authentic because that is what becomes your superpower, right? Like when you are being real and you're being honest, and we don't always have to share every little thing, but when we're hiding behind shame, then we are not being authentic. And so I feel like that is something that you have just really recently been able to let go of. And I also feel like that's the thing that's going to help you now move forward with your book and the retreat and all of the work that you're doing and how you are going to help other women heal. And probably not just women, right? Like when you're talking about, having an STD and or an STI and then being open about that and figuring out how do you navigate life? How do you navigate partnerships and relationships? And how do you do this in a way that you can feel loved and you can feel like you can give love? That's vulnerable. And so if you can use that as your superpower to help other people figure out how to do that, then girl, that's
Mm.
golden. It's golden.
Well, don't
Oh,
they say like what our trauma is our Path to Freedom or something like that. I don't know the expression, but you know
Absolutely.
where I'm going with that? Like, our
Yes,
suffering is our.
absolutely. Mhm.
Well, that was beautiful. I love
It was.
that.
I don't often pull the book out, but I wanna just look at this one. Oh,
Okay.
vulnerable hearts can be powerful, open, honest, and wise. That is the very first sentence. Woo! Sometimes have a greater need for spiritual light to secure and seal our path. Mm, this is so good. Keep your heart open to spiritual grace. So this book, this deck in particular, Elena Fairchild, Angelic Lightwork, this is the very first deck I've ever bought, and I absolutely loved it. I love
Oh,
them, and they come with a prayer. So if you don't mind, I'd like to read the prayer
oh,
because I find
oh,
these tend to be very helpful.
I
So
would love
let's
that.
take a nice deep breath, and I will read her prayer. Archangel Michael, you bring the strength, will, and protection of sacred fire to me now for the greatest good of all. Sacred fire brings the healing gifts of cleansing, freedom from the past, and renewal, so I may experience a new chapter in my life. Please hold and protect the sacred space for healing to happen according to divine grace. I open my heart to you, my dear angelic friend. Please empower and bless this sacred work. And so it is.
Mm, wow.
Woo! I love cards.
I love that. I just have like this feeling like, okay, you're launching me on my mission. Thank you.
Yes. I tend to do those sorts of things. I also will often I do. I also will often look at the card that's on top then, and the next one is Healing Through Challenge, which is also something that I
Oh,
very much feel like applies to you. So, protection for the
wow.
vulnerable heart and then healing through challenge. So you're
Wow.
doing the hard work. You are doing the hard work for the good of you and the people around you. I am so grateful that you are able to do that.
Thank you. Thank you,
Mm.
Tanya.
You're very welcome. So normally when I do a session with a client around this, it's a much longer extended session. This is just a sort of a little piece
Mm,
of it. But also we come out with like, I call it a prescription, like what is the thing we're going to do or the permission that we're going to give ourselves. And my 2 cents for you is that I think writing is probably like you've said how much you love it and that you embrace it. And so I think there's probably maybe some journaling in your future around this card in particular that could be very
mhm.
helpful and will help you move forward just a little bit, maybe continue to release what this could look like. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I
You're
plan to do
welcome.
that.
I
Wow, what
love it.
a yeah. Well, obviously you're good at what you do. So,
Oh, thank you.
yeah.
Thank you.
I
So when we're let's figure out how we now bring this back in and wrap this up. So what would you say to, because typically my audience is women, our age or even a little bit younger, and so these are women who have their own struggles, their own challenges, they're overwhelmed, they're living in anxiety and depression and overwhelm, and they're handling the emotional load of their families and whatnot. And so they might be dealing with this challenge. Maybe it's a spouse, or maybe it's one of their kids are starting into something that they're not loving. And so what maybe direction would you give them, or what would you have to offer them, do you think?
well, I think for their own personal self, it depends on uh like if we're looking at ourselves in our own struggle, maybe a story we're telling ourselves, like I would challenge your listeners to challenge their story, um and ask, is it true?
Healing
And
through challenge.
um I only say that because, I'm trying to pull out the main themes of my life that could be helpful to people, rather than, yes, definitely my diagnosis was it, and then I could maybe help.
Hmm.
But the most important thing about the most traumatic thing about my story is my life experience is the story I told myself, and I believed it for years. And it
Hmm.
wasn't until I realized that was a story I created, and I never allowed
Yes.
anyone to prove me otherwise, Like,
Yep.
I just said I was unlovable. I never gave that
Mm-hmm.
guy who I was heads and heels in love with, that soccer player, an opportunity to say, "Oh, it's okay. We can work around it."
Mm-hmm.
I just said, "Nope, he's going to
Yeah.
reject me." And so
Yep.
I just the stories we tell ourselves
Mm-hmm.
can be wrong. And
Mm-hmm.
so
And
I
I
think
I
that's
will add to that because I think that comes from fear, right? Like if
mm,
you gave him the opportunity and he rejected it, that would hurt you. And so rather than wait for that rejection, out of fear, you made the decision. And so I think we do that a lot.
absolutely.
We say the wrong things. We don't say the things we need to say because we are afraid of the result of that. And so I think that has a lot to do with what you're saying.
Mhm.
Mm,
Absolutely. That's the
it's
reason I
beautiful.
didn't voice it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I love that. So note to everybody listening, just listen to yourself, be open to reflection, be open to like self-criticism. It's okay. It's not the end of the world. And at the end of the day, ease and grace is the story that we need to give ourselves. Ease and grace. Fabulous. All right. This was wonderful.
It was wonderful. Thank you
Thank you
so
so
much. I
much.
had
I
a great
really
time.
appreciate it was fantastic. All right. Thank you so much. This is one of those conversations that I did not see coming, but I am so glad that we went there. If Colleen's story is sitting with you right now, that is not an accident. That is your nervous system telling that there is something here for you. So you can do a couple of things. You can connect with Colleen. The link for her is in the notes. And then there are two ways for you to connect with me. First, everything I do here also lives on Substack. That is where we have the full articles, the somatic practices, deeper work behind the episodes. So come find me at substack.com at Dr. Tanya Berfield. And second, I am going to be very direct with you about this one. The emotional ER sessions are open. This is my signature one-on-one intensive. This is just you and me going after whatever is running the show underneath the surface. We do somatic work, we do the inner work, and we leave with a real plan. The intensive is $50 off right now through the end of May. If you have been sitting on this, now is the time. My friend, let's get to it. So head over to drtanyab.com/ER and grab your spot. I love you. I will see you next week.